So maybe let's start, Sazan, with you. Were there any findings that surprised you most?
Well, we usually get surprised and then write a paper about the surprise we have. But for me, the most surprising part was the second paper that you just introduced, the non-answering measurement. So when I realized that we can really teach computers to measure how precise is the answers of the questions that we ask. And when I saw like the results that, yeah, there's words like, let me get back to you. That's a nice question.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't remember these kind of things. Very intuitive, and yeah, it was really surprising to me that the models are very nice to measure this kind of things.
Perfect. And also, we heard the overwhelmed feedback here, and so everyone was really happy with your work. Colin, maybe you can tell us and take us in your scenery to how many people did you have to explain what you're actually doing and what your research was about?
So I think I should begin with what it was about. It was about the estimation of credit excess returns using multiple factor constructions, fundamental data, and also very basic bond data, duration, etc. And I had to present it to, or I did want to present it to university staff, so my professor, and also at my work, because I did work as a working student in a credit department. So in fact, they were really, really interested in my thesis and, of course, the results of my thesis.
So the feedback was at the beginning very positive, and everyone was really eager to know what you're going to find out.
Yes. Everybody was very supportive. I didn't have any problems to find a professor to supervise me.
Yeah.
And I think especially the final part of my thesis was very interesting because it differed from other works that do that historical backtesting framework thing, because I could find very significant evidence as to the market timing capabilities of certain machine learning algorithms, so to speak.
So then how was it in your case? Was it easy for people outside to understand what you're going to do?
Well, I was lucky that my subject was very intuitive, like that we are facing it in our daily lives whenever we have a Q&A sessions. So politicians, central bankers, managers. So there are lots of places that we can see the applicability of this research, and that's why it made it much easier for me to communicate how important it is. And then for the technicalities, it depends on the audience. I should always adjust the technicalities that I'm talking about. But it was like everyone was very supportive, and it was everyone likes that I was talking to, like the approach we had to measure no answers.
So a question to both of you, what would you say afterwards? What was the biggest challenge in the whole process?
Do you want to start?
Of course I can start. I think there were two kinds of problems or two kinds of challenges that I had to face. And one part was that I think it was very important for me to find a structure to be able to say, okay, until then I will have to complete my code so that when I make my computations, which may last for 2 weeks, so that I will be able to hand out my master thesis. So I think that was one challenge that I did face. And of course, machine learning to some people is some kind of black box. So it is probably essential to find a way to get people to understand what you have in mind, to get your motivation, to understand why you do the next step as you do your next step.
Yeah.
But at the same time, being slightly technical so that people understand why you did that step. So, I think talking to non-technical people about very technical aspects of your work was also quite challenging.
I assume that's a huge challenge. Sazan, what was it like in your case? Which was your biggest challenge?
So when I was starting my PhD, like AI wasn't as popular as it is now, and it was always a challenge to convince people that this is not a black box, as you just mentioned. So the models are understandable under our controls. We decide what to assume and what to not assume. And so, yeah, convincing people that, yeah, using AI, I can still produce top research was a big challenge. But I think nowadays, for future people, it shouldn't be, because nowadays, when you look at top journals in economics, in each issue, you will find some AI works.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you so much. Professor Farkas, are you going to also use the research findings in your work? And if yes, to which extent?
Well, this is a challenging question, Alisa. As you know, I was not prepared for your question, so let me try to answer it spontaneously. Well, I mean, of course, the curriculum in universities is quite a fixed environment. We usually have core courses, we have electives, and we have maybe some optional parts. So probably it's easy to incorporate this type of findings in optional lecture, seminar, or research seminar. I mean, also the two topics were quite different. This was part of the difficulties that we had in the jury, how to measure and how to compare, because Colin spent 6 months, Sasan maybe, I don't know, 4 years. So this was one aspect. So what could we do is, for example, the work of Colin could be integrated in a specialized lecture towards bonds, and I think that some of the contribution of SAS can be included when we do trainings for startups and so on. Yeah, but it's a process which is not so fast.
What do you observe? How important is a certain level of knowledge in finance for graduates these days?
Well, for finance, I think it's very important. That's why we, for example, in Zurich, and I'm not trying to advertise now our programs in Zurich, we try to build a bridge. We have many engineers who are not yet trained enough in finance. We have people from economics, social sciences, but maybe they lack a certain quantitative education. In this respect, their contribution is outstanding because they somehow build a bridge between finance and quantitative analysis, between new developments like AI, machine learning. I'm sure that a few years ago, these were only buzzwords that not everybody was aware. Meanwhile, I think they are part of our education, and the young generation will not come next steps without being exposed to a certain, let's say, a package of lectures and seminars in AI and machine learning. There we have people of 14 years old now in the audience in Frankfurt here in the studio, and I'm sure that they are our future.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's a very important topic. To which extent is the industry making use in 2022 of AI compared also to other industries? We've heard it in several speeches today.
Well, I mean, in finance, this is coming more and more. I mean, especially in the asset management area, AI is widely used. I cannot compare with other areas, but I'm sure that in medicine and also in areas like social sciences, when we have to deal with the media and the lack of information, avoiding responses, probably that's an area where we also will face AI. In finance, this is part of the future. I'm not sure it's only AI the future, but it will be for sure an important pillar for that.
Oh, that's really important. Thank you for that answer. What would you say, what should students focus on during their studies, their financial studies?
Well, it's always important that they are curious, and I'm sure that the young generation are aware that competition is increasing. Nowadays, with social media, the information flux is much faster than, let's say, a few years ago. The curiosity should be behind their action, and they should be not only curious, but also should be well equipped for the challenges that we'll face outside. Yeah, it's a process, and I would also encourage, I was really positive, impressed. Colin did a lot of internships, so he really got in touch with the real world, sometimes including myself in our academic environment. We live in our dreams, but I think the young generation should come closer and faster to the financial services industry.
From your perspective, what would you say, and what would you also maybe to pass on to other students or graduates? Any learnings?
Sorry.
Yeah, so for me it was like, as I said, it was always surprising for me that how fast things can change. So when I started my PhD, AI wasn't that famous, by the end of my PhD, it was already, so there are awards like this for the defense of PhDs in AI. So yeah, that's why people should keep their minds open for new approaches, even if they are not yet very applicable. You should think of future applications that could come into the play.
And what about you?
So when it comes to university, I think I was very fortunate that I had a lot of machine learning courses. So yeah, I was faced with these topics quite intensively, and I think that it is also very important to make internships to get these experiences and to apply the knowledge that you learn, in that case, machine learning, in the real world.
Yeah, it's great that we've also seen your CV and that you had so many different, several stations in the industry. We received a question from our audience, and so then this is to you. Compared to a human, would you say that your model is simply faster or actually better at interpreting the transcripts?
So, for sure it is faster. There is like immediate calculation that the answer hasn't been complete. Yeah, like none of the AI models are perfect. So the good thing is that the model should be in our control, so we can understand what is the prediction coming from, and if there is a need for adjustment for the future cases, we could adjust it fast. So that's the most important part of the AI work. Yeah, what we are going to measure, so far there is like a literature on measuring non-answers, for example. But what we do is like we show that our measure is outperforming all of the previous measures that are available so far. So that's what I can answer here.
Thank you. Thank you also to our audience for the question. We received another question, and calling this time, it's for you. Did you exclude any models from your final thesis you initially started working with? If so, why?
Well, I excluded sort of weak neural networks, so neural networks that have very few hidden layers, because the computation time was very high. And compared to the, let's say, statistical properties, which resembled these of other more simple models, it wasn't worth it. So yeah, I did exclude certain models. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much on behalf of everyone. And as we've heard today in the first speech by Dr. Leber, he said there is not enough research. So thank you very much for doing such a great research. And also thank you very much to you for valuing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
So now I need to clear the stage a little bit.